Come and join me on a retro road trip as we head around the UK, check out some of the best charity shops, pawn shops, CEX stores and independent game stores that the UK has to offer on this, the Retro Road Trip. Hello again folks and welcome back to the Retro Road Trip, a full day of game and retro hunting, and guess what? I'm taking you folks along for the ride, and this time we are going between Great Yarmouth and Lowestoft, and along the way we are going to see some crazy and awesome sights. We are talking game shops, CEX shops, charity shops, pawn shops, everything we love, and even a real life flea market here in the UK. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and please subscribe, as I put new videos out every Saturday live at 5, as well as bonus content throughout the week, and I really want you folks along for the ride. Now, let's hit the road for the Retro Road Trip. Here we are then, bright and early for another retro road trip, and this time we are keeping to the east coast, and we are starting off in a pretty dreary September morning here on the gem of the east coast, Great Yarmouth. So we have a CX store here, we have some awesome game stores and some charity shops, and let's hope we start the day off on a high. And what better way to start the day is than to start off in Great Yarmouth CEX. Over the years I've picked up some amazing bits from here, so let's hope we find something cool today for the collection. But unfortunately, heading to the glass window of dreams, there's nothing really too exciting standing out here. It's a lot of mobile phones, it's consoles, but we all know the best stuff is normally hiding inside in the glass cabinet of dreams. So in here we have some weird like home echo devices, and we have a couple of loose Game Boy games, some GameCube stuff, but again, nothing really too exciting to write home about. Some really haggard looking memory cards, one of the weirdest third party GameCube controllers I've seen in a long time. That thing is seriously fugly. We've got some good retro in here. Die Hard Arcade for the Saturn, don't see that one every day. Pokemon Stadium for the N64, still need that one for the collection. And speaking of the N64, there was some really nice boxed games here, but nothing that I really needed for the collection, or nothing that wasn't quite perfect condition. Everyone's about a solid 6 or 7 out of 10, but if I'm looking for boxed N64 games, I want them in really nice condition. There was some really good retro Sega here. I'm always on the lookout for Mega Drive and Master System games, especially because you can get some really good deals on these in CEX. Heading to the next cabinet, and here is something you don't see every day. The actual trilogy of Silent Hill expensive games. We have the Silent Hill Collection, which is a super expensive game. We have Silent Hill Origins, which again is a super expensive game, and Silent Hill 4 The Room, all for the PlayStation 2. It is not very often you see these free PlayStation heavy hitters in the same cabinet. Somebody must have made an absolute killing when they traded these ones in. They are gems for anyone's collection. But heading on from the PlayStation 2 to the PlayStation 4, and I'm still trying to add these PlayStation VR games to my collection, and now is a great time to do this, as these are dirt cheap at the moment, and the prices on these are only going to go up. This is a game I played a demo of, absolutely loved it, and for this price I definitely want to add it to the collection. It is coming up for spooky season, this is a great game for then. Next, it's time to hit up some charity shops, and it's not very often I will pick up PC games, but these Alice games are getting more and more expensive on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, so for 50p I think I'm going to take a risk on this one for the PC, because I don't know if that game's available digitally anymore, but it's the kind of game that I reckon will be deleted and be really hard to play in the next few years, and I cannot believe I don't have this game in my collection already. Battlefield 4 for the PlayStation 3, for 50p I'll grab it. Sticking with PC gamings, we have not one but 2 copies of Call of Duty Modern Warfare, an absolute classic, but one which really hasn't held its value on PC, which is sadly the case with a majority of PC games. But also hiding in here is one of my favourite World War II shooters of all time, Battlefield 1942, the World War II anthology. This game back in the day on PC was absolutely incredible, and still honestly takes a lot of beating today. I was quite tempted to pick up all of these Guinness World Book of Records. I think they had 4 years in here, they were all £1 each, but I did pass on these because, to be honest, I'm running out of space, and books take up a surprisingly large amount of space. These are super cool though, and a really good way to add some kind of gaming knowledge, and I did pass on this Rick and Morty comic as well, but here's the thing, when you're building a collection, not everything can make the collection. I did almost miss this Tetris shake game hiding on the top shelf, and Do you know what? For £1.50, I will pick this up. I'm a big fan of board games, and with a game like this, you're probably only going to play it a couple of times or at parties, but for £1.50, it's kind of worth the risk. And to be honest, this looks like quite a bit of fun. It's a good way to kind of change up how you play Tetris, and again, for £1.50, it's a banger. But this here is... I always look through t-shirts in charity shops, but you just don't expect to find something cool and game-based. This Borderlands style t-shirt, I have no idea what this brand is, but this thing is absolute fire. And for the price, it may not be my size, but I'm sure somebody would love to have this in their collection. On to the next charity shop, and it does seem lightning has struck twice. 2 stores in a row we have found vintage video game t-shirts, and this one I'm keeping for myself. This SmackDown vs Raw 2011 promotional t-shirt. I absolutely love wrestling and I love this game. Here's the thing though, literally what are the chances of 2 stores back to back having retro video game shirts? So it's shaping up to be a strange day. So let's carry on that strangeness in our next charity shop. This is the British Heart Foundation, and yes, their prices are normally high, but £10 for this Xbox One controller doesn't seem too bad. I did pass because I'm just not a fan of wired controllers. Game-wise, there wasn't anything too exciting in here. This kind of big Urbox PC game was kind of tempting, but it was literally just a CD in a box, so not the most exciting thing of all time. SmackDown vs Raw, slightly overpriced, but would have gone nicely with that t-shirt. Sadly, I couldn't visit this store today, Play, in the heart of Great Yarmouth. I have been here multiple times, and if you've seen any of the videos from this place, you will know it is absolutely crazy. It is one of the most stacked video game stores I have ever been to. I will link a video in the description below of the inside of the store because it has to be seen to be believed. And talking of being seen to be believed, King Street Traders, directly across the road from Play, again, is an absolutely crazy store. I don't know what it is about Great Yarmouth, but it just seems to bring out the amazingness in all of these stores. Like, look at this video game section and look at that massive turtles there. This is just an absolutely amazing selection of games. All of these are pretty good prices as well, to be fair. And the thing is, with places like this, you never know what you're going to expect. You can see there we have the Gears of War 5 limited edition Xbox One, a Fortnite air gun, because why not? Why not a Fortnite air gun? But yeah, a massive selection of games here. We have Xbox One, PlayStation 4, we have Wii, we have literally a little bit of everything. Anything you could probably be looking for, you can find here in King Street Traders. I love the fact the shelves here are just lit up with LEDs, and the prices aren't too bad in here, but they're not quite cheap enough you can flip these games into CEX. But if you're looking to build a collection, most of the games in here are slightly cheaper than the CEX prices. I always kind of go through these big boxes down here because this is normally where they just kind of have stock they're trying to get rid of. There's a lot of PlayStation 2 games in here, a lot of decent PSP games, and I do think that PSP is a console which way too many people sleep on. I think in the next 5 or 10 years, people are going to sorely regret not collecting for the PSP. There's a really nice GameCube controller here. Again, a really good price. And that's the main thing here. The prices were really good. Maybe not so much on these PlayStation 5 games over here, but this is the thing. A lot of stores like this normally don't know how to price their newer games like the PlayStation 5 games. Sadly, it's something you see all too often. So Yarmouth was pretty good. You can see here now I'm outside B&M, and you might be wondering why I'm outside B&M. That's because occasionally they have some absolutely awesome deals on collectibles, and especially today on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles figures. So fingers crossed we can find them in this store. If not, there's hopefully some more along the way. Here we are then in the toy section in B&M, and you can see straight away there is a lot of Turtle stuff, especially with the new movie out in the cinemas at the moment. This is a set I've been looking for a little while, but I'm waiting for this to drop to under 20 quid on Amazon. It does all the time, I just keep missing it, but this is what I was really looking for. This absolutely incredible Turtles box set, and to be honest, I did not think we were going to find it in the very first B&M store we went to. I've been searching for this around Norwich for months, and it's just never turned up, and the first store we go into today we find it. So once again, it's just going to show it's going to be a good day. Now unfortunately, I didn't realise at the time of recording this There was 2 different box sets, and I only picked one up, so there's still one that I'm looking for, which is kind of frustrating, but like I said, you can't add everything to the collection every time. They had the singular AEW figure in here, which for £10 wasn't too bad, but sadly I did pass, and these really awesome Cobra Kai figures. Now this was a really good price for these. These are way more expensive on Amazon, but again, unfortunately, I did only have the one figure, and at the moment, I can't really afford to start another massive collection of figures, so I did pass on this one, even though it was super cool, and Cobra Kai is one of my favourite shows. I genuinely can't believe the very first B&M I've tried today had those TMNT figures that I've been looking for in Norwich for absolutely ages. You saw there was 3 other boxes as well. They sell on Amazon for like 55 quid, so to be able to pick it up for 30 quid is an absolute bargain. Also, I've got the healthiest breakfast known to man. We have our Fallout 76, yes, Fallout 76 Rockstar drink, as well as an absolute breakfast of champions, the old Fox's Pie Rings. Now, on to our next location. Just outside Yarmouth, on the way to our next location on today's retro road trip, is one of the biggest charity shops I've ever been to. This store is absolutely massive, but even though this is a big store, it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to find any big bargains. But you can see here, this store is ginormous and it has a massive media section, but unfortunately this time there's nothing really that exciting in the way of video games. We got a lot of PlayStation 2 shovelware, Wii shovelware, just nothing really that I'd either want to add to the collection or flip into CX, which is a real shame, but it goes to show it's not the size of the charity shop, it's the stock of the charity shop. And at the end of the day, if it's all kind of shovelware and games that are essentially worthless, it's not very good for helping me build the collection, but I can understand why the charity shops do get filled with games like this. I was tempted by this one, but I did pass. So we may not have had very much luck at that really big charity shop, but next stop is Fritton Lake Flea Market. And yes, this is a proper flea market. It's not one of these places where people go, oh yeah, it's a flea market. This is a genuine flea market in the UK. It's pretty crazy, and it also has a crocodile sanctuary. Before we go any further, it's worth noting that this place is cash only. So this is Fritton Lake Flea Market, and yes, this is a proper flea market here in the UK, and this place is absolutely vast and it is stacked, and it is one of those places where you just have to jump in and look everywhere, as there is no rhyme nor reason to where anything could be in here. There's everything in here. There's guitars, antiques, video games, DVDs, toys, a little bit of everything. But here is the thing, this is the definition of just jumping in and searching, because that's what you have to do with a place like this. You just have to get involved, jump in and search through all of these booths, and there is tons of booths. I would say there's about 50 or 60 different booths in this store. It is absolutely massive, and it's just cool to go to a place like this in the UK. I see these all the time on like American YouTubers channels, but it's very rare to find something like this in the UK, especially on my doorstep. This is about 10 minutes outside of Great Yarmouth, and it's definitely worth a visit if you're in the area. It's absolutely crazy, and for my money I've seen nothing like this anywhere else. The only disadvantage of flea markets like this though is the fact everything is so varied. If you're looking for something very specific like we are normally with video games and retro, chances are there's not going to be too much here. But that's the thing, you have to pick through and find the cool things. Like this DuckTales DVD box set was very cool, but not necessarily worth £15. I may be wrong, but I did pass on that one. I did manage to find some video games, but here's the thing, in a place like this, a lot of things are few and far between. So it's more worth going for the experience. You may not find anything. Unfortunately, I didn't find anything this time, but that's half the fun of for me, is just picking through these boxes and just seeing what we can find. I was tempted by some of these PC CD-ROM games, but unfortunately the discs were a little bit scratched. But road trips are all about experiences, and it was so cool to pick through a real life flea market here in the UK. And even better, this was perfectly located, so it's a perfect stop on the way to our next location, this time on the retro road trip, if I actually manage to find my way out of here, because honestly this place is an actual maze. It's also a garden centre, and I feel like I may actually be lost in here. I just kind of wandered down some bit and now I'm in the middle of a garden centre, but I'm sure we'll kind of find our way back and hopefully find some bargains. And I did manage to find my way out of the garden centre portion of the store eventually. I did pass this very nice koi carp lake, which is something you don't see in a lot of charity shops, which is obviously an advantage of flea markets like this. It did also have one of the most eclectic tea rooms and a questionable decor for the garden centre aspect of this flea market, but back to more normal hunting locations, and inside there was this really cool computerized Grand Prix racing game, which was really cool. It was still in the box, but I did pass on it because it's a very large item, and as I said, I am slowly running out of space. Coming to the end of the flea market here, there was a lot to see, but I have condensed it down for the sake of this video. There was some video games here, nothing exactly to write home about, but it just goes to show I've missed these a couple of times going through, and this flea market is all about jumping in and seeing what you can find. Some cool wrestling figures here, and as a day out, I would definitely recommend heading here, and no trip to Fritton Lake Flea Market is of course complete without a trip around their owl sanctuary. We are in pure Alan Partridge country around here, and it's good to say I know a cracking owl sanctuary. So we may not have found many games here at the flea market, but we did get to hang out with an owl. So that was the Fritton Lake Flea Market and of course Owl Sanctuary. Not many games, but also not many owls randomly. So next up we are headed to Lowestoft to finish our day on this, the retro road trip. Here we are then in our final stop today in Lowestoft, and it may not be the sunniest day of all time, but you know, the view ain't too bad. You know, East Coast is always quite nice. It's always nice to be beside the seaside. Let's hope we find some good bits out hunting. Let's jump straight into the charity shops here in Lowestoft then. And again, these are fairly large charity shops, and they are also numerous in Lowestoft, so hopefully we'll find some good finds this time. Head into the back here, because normally this is where they hide the DVDs and yes, the video games. Now unfortunately I couldn't find any games this time. I thought maybe they're on this little spindly thing here, which is again one of my favourite ways to display games and DVDs, just as an easier way to kind of see what they've got going on. Now unfortunately there wasn't any video games here or DVDs I wanted for the collection, but in a nearby box of DVDs I did find this Tomb Raider interactive DVD games. Like, who remembers these interactive DVD games? I definitely wanted to pick this one up. I think it was like 20p or something, and for 20p I think that is a lot of fun to be had. I do enjoy these interactive DVDs, and because it's kind of a crossover with Tomb Raider, it's kind of a no-brainer to add to the collection. But sadly, there's nothing else interesting here. But heading up the road, we found a very interesting charity shop, as this charity shop was absolutely packed with retro, including these incredible Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Batman books, and these looked absolutely incredible. I was hoping I could get a good price on these, as I would love to add these to the collection. But as I said, this store was absolutely packed with retro, including retro video games. They had a pretty good selection of PlayStation 2 games. Yes, there was a lot of kind of filler and fodder titles here, as well as a lot of sports games, but some of these games are getting harder and harder to find these days, and also some Blu-rays in here, a lot of DVDs, but also some really cool stuff which you wouldn't usually see in charity shops. So on a shelf just next to the DVDs, my friend Mark, who had joined us for the retro road trip, had found these Batman and Robin kind of souvenir magazines from the movie. Now, it's not my favourite Batman movie, so I did pass on them, but it's really cool to see actual decent retro in a charity shop per se, such as these really retro looking. I think these were definitely 80s kind of walkie-talkies. Just because of the retro aesthetic of these, I was very tempted to pick these up. I did check the batteries and everything, but like I've said many times in this episode, you cannot collect everything, and to be fair, these would mainly be kind of shelf warmer pieces. But let me know in the comments down below if you would have picked these up. I think these were £3.50 for the pair, and they were super cool. But the retro just kept coming in here, like this electronic wizard game at the back here, complete in the box. Again, this is a really cool retro find, but sadly at the end of the day you cannot pick everything up, and this is just a little bit too retro for me, if that makes sense. I think this is more 70s. I'm more kind of into my 80s and 90s retro, so unfortunately I did pass on that. Here I am again, look at those radios. I was again tempted to pick up this Mousetrap game, just because this is the exact version I had when I was young, and this is a brilliant board game. I think this is a board game which has just stood the test of time, but the problem is ever picking up a board game in a charity shop, you never know if there's going to be pieces missing, so I did pass on this one just because I wasn't sure exactly what should have been in the box. Here we are then, walking towards our next location, Game Exchange, here in Lowestoft. I have gone past this place so many times and it's been closed. but it does look like it is open today, so we are in luck, and I'm really hoping to find some platinum games in here. But the thing is about game hunting, you never know what you're going to find, and also who you're going to find. So who is this coming down the street? It is no other than PS2Many Games. So we'll be enjoying this time on a retro road trip once again by PS2Many Games as we headed into Game Exchange. Now you may have seen this store in a recent episode of the PlayStation Platinum Project, and unfortunately that time I didn't manage to add any Platinum games to my collection, but this is just another one of the absolutely incredible independent gaming stores that are all around the country I love to shine a spotlight on. I know I go to CEX all the time, but it's stores like this where you find some absolute gems. These are the stores, some of which are just like time capsules to times long ago. Like, to see these shelves absolutely filled with like Dreamcast, Mega Drive, SNES, NES, just all these old school games just gives me such joy. And these are the kind of stores where you're going to find those real hidden gem items, the stuff you do not normally find. And places like this, Game Exchange, are absolutely stacked floor to ceiling with some of the very best retro you can ever find. And the main thing I love about these stores is that you literally never know what you're going to find. And with a store like Game Exchange, when it's absolutely stacked with retro, you just have to get stuck in. Much like the flea market earlier in this episode, this is stacked backwards. You have to get into the shelves, look behind the games, get around. Some people might not like this, but I like the feeling of digging even in a normal game shop. It's just really cool to see what's hiding, to find those hidden gems, that gold that may not have seen the light of day for absolutely years. And here was one of my favourite parts about this store. They had an absolutely massive selection of big box PC games. And in 2023, you do not see these very often. And to see essentially an entire collection of big box PC CD-ROM games in this store is an absolute blessing. Like, you just don't see these very often. I see like one or two periodically, like one at a car boot or one at a charity shop per year. To see them in this numbers in a store is just unheard of, and one of the best things I've seen in regards to PC gaming for a very, very long time. And I was very tempted to pick a lot of these up, but the problem is I have no idea on the pricing of these big box PC games. I'm normally pretty good with my video game pricing, but when it comes to like big box PC games, there's not a great deal to go off. Like, I was very tempted to pick up this game right here, South Park Rally. I think I played this back in the day on the PS1 or the N64, but I can imagine on the PC this probably runs a lot better. Now, I wasn't sure on the price of this one. I was offered it for £10. Unfortunately, I did pass just because, like I said, I didn't know the price, but let me know in the comments down below. Would you have picked South Park Rally up for £10? Carrying on through the store, and yes, as I said, there's an absolutely incredible range of retro in here, including this Tiger robot thing. I kind of have a brief memory of this, but nothing major for the 80s. But there's also some more modern games, such as an absolutely ginormous Xbox 360 section, which I was tempted to pick up one of these expansions to Borderlands because it's kind of these DLCs that are normally digital only that are getting harder and harder to find these days, as so many more of them get delisted from stores. And just, it's a great time to collect for the Xbox 360, like I've said about a million times already. They also had an absolutely massive PlayStation 3 section in here, and overall just an amazing selection. Here we are in Lowestoft trying to beat the bridge. I cannot believe how close that is. That's absolutely ridiculous. And I like how one car still tries to go.
Do they not know who we are?
We're going to be here with PS2Many Games, and we're going to be stuck here for at least about 5 or 10 minutes, then the hunt will continue. That siren is really annoying. So one annoying factor with hunting in Lowestoft is you do always have to battle the bridge, but with the time it takes for the bridge to raise and lower, it does give you some time to kind of contemplate some of the big questions we're all faced with on a day-to-day basis. So as we wait for the bridge, we are trying to discuss the best fast foods for travelling.
Tim Hortons.
I still think Doncaster had the best.
Yeah, they had everything, but
Like,
not Tim Hortons.
They did have Dunkin' Donuts.
But Tim Hortons has donuts, coffee and hot food.
So yeah, these are the kind of big questions we are answering here on the channel.
As we're waiting for the bridge to go
See,
up.
I like Taco Bell, but I don't. My body does not like Taco
No,
Bell.
Taco Bell's fine when you eat it. It's what happens at the end of it when it leaves your body.
That's too much information there from PS2 Games. After a good 5 minutes of putting the world to rights and answering the big questions on everyone's lips, we were back on the road for the retro road trip. And here's the thing, the best thing about road trips is just having time with friends and just enjoying yourself and just having fun and seeing new locations. And one of the best things about heading to towns is even if you've been there tons of times before, there may be places you've never visited, such as this small record store. Now, all three of us on the retro road trip today had been to Lowestoft hunting countless times, but none of us had ever been into this record store, and it just goes to show you cannot judge a store by the outside. Sometimes you just need to go inside and check it out. As you saw in a previous episode of the PlayStation Platinum Project, I picked up a copy of FIFA in here for the PlayStation Platinum Project, but this place had an absolutely amazing selection of not just Platinum games, Black Label games as well as PlayStation 2, some Wii games, even Xbox 360, and for a store which was advertised as a record store, both myself and PS2 Games picked up some really nice bits in here. And the thing is as well, these were all in really good condition and they were really well priced. And this is what I love about not just the retro road trip, but hunting in general, is the fact that I'm finding new places to hunt, and also I'm able to help you folks with new places to hunt. You may have as well been to Lowestoft before and never been into this store, but I would definitely recommend it. I could not believe that PS2 Games found a sealed copy of Rock Band in here, as well as this 24 Steelbook, which neither of us knew existed for the PlayStation 2. This was a fantastic store and another great stop on a retro road trip. One important factor when going on a retro road trip is refueling, and what better fuel is there than the Great British dinner of a Chippy dinner? And this was one of the biggest portions I've ever seen. After I'd nearly polished them off, I did have to leave a few. We were back into the charity shops, and up here was some games, even though they looked like they were on the verge of falling off. Did have some PS2 kind of classics here, such as Air Ranger. I feel like this is a game you see all the time, just because it's one of those kind of budget titles that just was very cheap, regardless of where they were selling. Sadly, neither of us needed this for our collection, so we did leave it behind. But it's one of those kind of weird games I don't think they'd make in 2023. I think it's just one of PlayStation 2. There's just so many kind of filler titles. And here is Mark reenacting the fact he found this Call of Duty guide, which unfortunately I did think I had in the collection. I did pick it up, and unfortunately, yes, I do already have it in the collection, but I guess it's going to be added to the pile of strategy guides, which I have doubles of, because I'm terrible at remembering which ones I have.
How does Wimpy stay afloat? How is there a Wimpy, and why are they all seemingly in small towns in Norfolk?
I have no idea why there are so many of these Wimpies in small towns on the east coast of England. If anyone knows, please let me know down in the comments down below. I always look for CDs when I'm on a road trip, because at the end of the day, for normally like 10, 20, even 50p, you can pick up an album you haven't listened to for absolutely years to listen to on the way home from your retro road trip. And that's exactly what I did this time with this CD here. I think it was 2 for £1 or 2 for 50p here. I did scan, and unfortunately there was nothing else I needed, but at the end of the day, being able to buy an album for 50p is still cheaper than buying it off a streaming website. Continuing the trend of absolutely giant charity shops, this time we have this absolutely humongous YMCA charity shop, and there is enough furniture in here to furnish about 100 homes, I would say. There is countless sofas, units, there's tons of clothes, there is just absolutely acres seemingly of stuff inside this charity shop. This is an absolutely ginormous charity shop, and it takes a while to get around a charity shop like this, because you never know what you're going to find. You need to go through all the old electricals, everything like that, even some of the furniture. Next door, sadly nothing found in there, we had another B&M, and this is where I find a lot of my Xbox and PlayStation lights and bits like that, which I decorate the games within. This B&M store was absolutely stacked with so much of this Paladin merchandise. It really was an epic sight to see in any B&M store. Our final charity shop of the day, and sadly slim pickings. The only thing that was a little bit tempting was this Harry Potter Lego Years 1 to 4 game for the Nintendo Wii, but I did pass on this one, as sadly a lot of these Lego games, especially on the Wii, are going down in value. And of course, one last time we did have some FIFA games, but fear not, there's one last stop, this time on the retro road trip. Let's head for the final time, this time to CX, once again in the heart of Lowestoft. Here it is then, CEX Lowestoft, and while it is a very small store, I have picked up some absolute gems from this store, because we never judge a CX store by its size, we judge it by its stock. And straight away in the glass cabinet of dreams, this was an absolutely beautiful copy of Pokemon Heart Gold, complete with the Pokey Stepper. A pricey game for sure, but one in this condition it's getting very, very hard to find, and this is the kind of retro you just love to see in your local CX. So recently I saw online that someone traded in pretty much the complete PlayStation Vita collection into this very CEX store in Lowestoft, and while a lot of these games had been ordered online or even picked up in store, there was still the largest selection of PlayStation Vita games I have ever seen, quite possibly anywhere. This was absolutely a sight to behold, and something which I don't think I'm going to see again anytime soon. Now, I actually had my eyes on something very specific in this CEX store, and it was something which it seemed wasn't on the shelves. I was checking through the Xbox 360 section because that is the console this is for. Spoiler alert, it is a collector's edition, and it's always worth checking the stock in a CEX store before you visit, because some of the time, not all of the time, some of the items aren't out on the shelf, and this is the only way to know what is seemingly hiding in these CEX stores, and that was the case this time, as I managed to pick up a collector's edition for an absolute bargainous price for the Xbox 360. But I wasn't the only one who used this technique to get an absolutely banging deal from this CEX. My good friend and fellow YouTuber PS2 Many Games also picked up an absolutely beautiful example of Guitar Hero for the PlayStation 2. This thing was in incredible condition and was once again not on the shelves but hiding in the back of the CX. So there we have it then, folks. That was another episode of the Retro Road Trip. Some awesome pickups. Let's take it back to the games room for them pickups. Here we are then, back in the games room from an absolutely awesome day of games hunting, and what makes it better was having some friends join along for the ride, because we all know a road trip is always better with friends. And what better place was there to start this time than CEX in Great Yarmouth? And our first pickup is this game, Here They Lie, for PlayStation VR. Now, I think so many people are sleeping on these PlayStation VR games. I loved PlayStation VR when it first came out. I haven't quite jumped on the kind of hype train or adopted PlayStation VR 2 quite yet because of the high price tag, but with the original PlayStation VR, even the hardware now is super cheap, and with games like this for just £5, now is a great time to collect for PlayStation VR. Not all games you pick up from charity shops need to be like expensive heavy hitters. It's all about building a game collection. I never realised I didn't have a Battlefield 4 for PlayStation 3. Yes, it's not a very expensive game, but if I can pick up for 50p, it's a great one to add to the collection. As well as American McGee's Alice for PC for just 50p. Now, I don't very often pick up these PC games, but this is the kind of game which I think is going to get very, very expensive, especially when it gets delisted, if it hasn't been already from digital storefronts. And the thing is, the sequel to this game on PC is very, very expensive, so definitely one to keep an eye out for. Next up, we have not one but two video game t-shirts. The SmackDown vs Raw promotional t-shirt I'm wearing here, as well as this Hard Times, obviously Borderlands inspired t-shirt. Now sadly, this one here is a size medium, so it won't quite fit me, but I think at some point I'm probably going to be selling at conventions or even starting my own eBay store, so having stock like this is definitely a good thing, because I see these video game t-shirts all the time, and hopefully I can get this into the hands of somebody who really wants it. Finally, from Great Yarmouth, we have this Tetris Shake board game, and at the end of the day, for £1.50, I wanted to pick this up because how much fun can you get for £1.50? With this, I'm sure it's going to be good for at least half an hour's fun on a rainy day. Here we have quite possibly my favourite pickup this time on the Retro Road Trip, these Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles books, and these things are absolutely incredible. Just look at the artwork on these. I love them so much. The 80s Turtles are by far my favourite, and I can't specifically remember having these when I was younger, but certain things, just kind of inserts in the artwork, just stir something in my memory. I managed to pick these 4 books up, as well as these 2 Batman books for £5, which is an absolute bargain. It just goes to show you can still find some incredible bits in charity shops. We ended the Retro Road Trip this way, in the same way we started it, in CEX, but this time in Lowestoft, and I just have the one pickup this time, but it is a great one. It is Splinter Cell Blacklist, but this is the collector's edition for the Xbox 360, and this is in amazing condition. And there are some really cheap collector's editions for the Xbox 360 still available in CEX at the moment, and I think a lot of these are going to get very rare and very hard to find, especially in this condition, as this is in absolutely amazing condition. This is what it is when you get collector's editions like this. It is all about condition. Of course, in here we do have the game, which in 2023 isn't always the case, But underneath that, we have some kind of promotional bits, which are probably fully out of date. So feel free to steal that code if you want. Underneath there, we have Splinter Cell Echoes Act 1, which is a very, very small comic book. But the most exciting thing in here, and quite possibly for the price this was, £15, quite unbelievable, is inside this little tiny Splinter Cell Blacklist black box here, we have a digital watch, and this thing is brand new and never been used, and I just think it is crazy that in 2023 you can still buy this collector's edition from CX for just £15. There we have it then, folks. That is another episode of the Retro Road Trip in the bag, and I hope it's inspired you to take your own personal retro road trip. And if you're planning a road trip, let me know whereabouts it's going to be in the comments down below. I'm always looking for locations that I can just take a road trip for in one day. That is the thing. I aim to do 9 to 5 game hunting on the Retro Road Trip. So comment below, hit that like button, subscribe, and who knows where I'm visiting your town next time on a Retro Road Trip. See y'all soon.